Welcome to Positive Vibes. I'm Nicki Dennis. This space is for the kind of stories that catch your breath, the ones that prove healing is possible, strength is a choice, and purpose can rise from even the most painful places. And today's guest is Mark Maselli, a man whose story is not just about surviving, but transcending. After receiving a life-saving kidney transplant, Mark didn't just recover, he ran a marathon less than 1 year later. His journey isn't just physical, it's spiritual. It's all about breaking generational patterns, choosing growth, and proving that mindset is just as powerful as your body. Mark is also a corporate leader, an author, and the creator of the Maselli mindset, a framework rooted in discipline, purpose, and possibility. His story is a testament to what happens when you stop waiting and start becoming. Mark, I'm so glad to have you here today. Let's get into it.
All right, thank you. I'm excited to be here.
So, Mark, your journey is an absolute incredible one. Can you take us back to the moment when you realized that something had to change, not just your health, but your life?
Yeah, so I had been an athlete growing up, and I was purpose driven, and then I took that into the corporate world, and somewhere in my 30s I got lost in that. And I
Mm-hmm.
became so focused on work that I didn't take care of my health. I didn't take care of my family in the emotional sense, and I just kind of lost myself.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had a pretty rude awakening in 2018 when I was diagnosed with a kidney disease. And it's the same kidney disease that took my grandmother, two of my uncles,
Mm.
and put my mom on dialysis.
Oh, that's
And that was a pretty rude awakening. And it was at that moment that I said, I have a choice. I can follow the status quo, succumb to my circumstances, and kind of be the victim. And um, just go along with it and go on dialysis and then possibly even die from the disease. And that
mm.
sounds a bit dramatic, but that's kind of the path that I could have gone on.
Yeah,
And I made the choice that's not going to be me. And I'm going to break the generational cycle. And
yeah.
in that moment, I sat with my nephrologist, who
Mm-hmm.
is a kidney doctor for those that that don't know what a nephrologist is. And I said, this is the goal that I have. I do not want to go on dialysis, and I want to do everything I can to preserve myself long enough to get a transplant.
Mm.
And she said, well, the first thing you can do is change your diet, lose some weight, and exercise. So I changed my diet and I started exercising again. And I lost probably 50 pounds.
Mm-hmm. Wow,
And
that's a lot.
um, and then my numbers kept dropping, and I put a plea out on Facebook, and it went kind of micro viral. It got shared, quite a bit.
Yeah.
And within a month of me making that post, the hospital called me and said I had 3 matches.
Oh,
And
incredible.
I was like, what? Because the alternative was to go on the list. And in
Yeah.
California, the list is 8 to 12 years. And
Wow.
I didn't have that kind of time. And um, there's a whole wild story behind my donor, and maybe we'll get into it, maybe we won't. But
Mm.
um, I I was able to get a donor, and I got a transplant 2 months before I turned 47.
Oh,
And
that's
that's a significant number because my grandmother and my mother both went on dialysis at the age of 47. And that was such it was so connected that it couldn't be coincidence. I truly believe that there was meaning behind that number 47 and me breaking that cycle at that exact
mm.
time. And
Yeah.
yeah. And so
Mm.
that leading up to that, it was more about being focused on the transplant. But when I came out of it, I knew my life would be different from that point forward. And so that was the mental and the spiritual transformation that I had.
And it's so inspiring that you wanted to change that generational weight that could have shaped your life the same as your previous family, but your whole mindset was different to what where theirs was, or maybe there was more opportunities for you to do that. But yeah, the mindset's yeah, a big weight in your health and not just your body, but your mindset. So yeah, wonderful
Right.
to hear that.
Yeah. Well,
So
I had lived with my grandmother off and on as a child, and
yeah,
at 4 and 5 years old, she would take me with her to dialysis, and I would
yeah.
see the machine, and I would see the other people there, and I always, even at that age, I was like, these people look really, really sick.
Mm.
And when I went to one of my first appointments for getting on the transplant list, when I went into the hospital, they asked me who the patient was. They were expecting somebody else because I don't look like I have a kidney disease. And
Yeah.
when I was in the lobby, all those people reminded me of the people I saw at my grandmother's dialysis. And
Mm.
and it hit me really deep in my heart that because I have a gift that I don't look like a dialysis patient, because I do have physical health because of exercise and being an athlete as a child, I said I have a gift that I have to value and do something with. So
Mm. So just you've touched on dialysis, but we know the transplant, the kidney transplant would have been a huge event, and taken a huge toll on your body. But what was it like recovering? What was the emotional recovery like after?
right. So um I'm a very competitive and very much a go-getter. I think that'll come through as we go through this. And they told me it would take 10 days before they would release me from the hospital. I
Mm.
went in on Monday and I was out by Friday.
Oh,
Because I just
remarkable.
uh, well, when I woke up from the surgery, it was an enlightenment.
Mm.
And I said, there is nothing that's going to stop me from this day forward. I've overcome the biggest hurdle in my life, and if I can do that, there is nothing that can stop me.
Mm.
And so I made it my mission to recover and to have a positive attitude and a positive outlook. And that helped with my healing process so much. In fact, my doctors were telling me to slow down because I was progressing so well, and they had never had a patient that had behaved that way.
Yeah,
Most of their patients had kind of just like gone through the motions, where I was trying to go for, half a mile of a walk and and do things like that. But I did have a little bit of survivor's guilt,
yeah,
and kind of that guilt of I kind of skipped the line by getting my own donor and
mm.
not having to go on a list. And when I had to go to the clinic visits and I still saw people coming in wheelchairs and walkers and not looking well, I felt a little guilty that here I am strutting in there like, look at me, I'm just, happy-go-lucky. And I reframed that not as survivor's guilt, but as survivor's respect.
Mm.
And in reframing that into a positive thing, I hold respect in that because I am physically healthy, because I am mentally healthy, what things can I do to inspire others and pay it forward in a way
Mm.
where I'm doing justice by them
Yeah,
by treating this kidney as the gift that it is.
yeah. That's a beautiful statement, as in survivor's respect. Yeah. So, yeah, just listening to their talking about the survivor guilt in Australia, there's a lot of transplants that actually come from people that have had unfortunate accidents, and that's where a lot of the survivor guilt comes into it here. So, yeah, reframing that. into survivor respect is a beautiful way of putting that. But also in regards to your mindset, just coming back to your mindset about the recovery and how quick you recovered, it's always that saying that you come to, it's mind over matter. So the mindset really helps with the healing and also your, not just your physical, but your whole well-being in your body. So yeah, great takeaways there.
Right.
So, Mark, 346 days later, after your transplant, you ran a marathon. I I can't believe that you did that. Like that's just amazing. What made you set such a bold goal?
Well, the funny thing about that is I had never even run a 5K.
Yep.
So it's a bittersweet story in some regard, but also a story of just sheer triumph and will. One of our friends, um, she runs 5Ks all the time, and she was always
Hmm.
trying to get me to run one with her, but I would always come up with some sort of excuse. And sadly, 2 months before my transplant, her brother died,
Oh.
and he died of kidney problems. And he had gotten so sick that he wasn't even healthy enough to get a transplant, even if he had a match.
Mm.
And so when I told her that I was getting ready to have my transplant, there was a lot of going back to the survivor's guilt. It was like, do I make this phone call? Because is that rubbing it in her face?
Mm.
And so after the transplant, I had to sit, they made me stay at home for 3 months. And that's a lot of time to sit by yourself and think. And I started to think, okay, I've been given this gift. I want to inspire others. What can I do that is inspiring? And I thought about the 5K that she kept asking me about in regards to, her brother, and maybe we run a 5K together to celebrate
Yeah.
his life and my gift. And um, I thought about the 5K and I said, well, that just that doesn't seem big enough, right?
Mm.
I'm a go big or go home kind of guy. And so I sat around and I thought, and I said, well, what's something that's universal? What's something that kind of everybody knows and everyone kind of holds in regard as something very challenging or difficult? And out of nowhere, a marathon kind of popped into my head. And most people know what a marathon is.
Mm.
Most people know that it's super hard. And most people don't do it because only 1% of the world's population runs a marathon yearly. And I said, that's it. I'm going to do that. And I told my doctor, and he laughed at me. He goes, okay, yeah. He thought I was joking. And when he gave me the green light at 3 months to start light exercise, I started walking and trying to
Mm.
build up some sort of stamina. And I was actually surprised that the toll it took
Mm.
on me physically to have the transplant, just trying to recover from that. And about 7 months prior to the marathon, I started training, and it was the hardest thing I think I've ever done. And the marathon was just a celebration of all the hard work. But through that, I felt like I transformed.
Mm.
I actually been posting on Instagram about I kind of have like weekly themes that tie to my blog. And last week's theme was the finish line is not the end. The finish line is just the beginning. And
Mm.
the finish line is only a celebration of who we became in the process of making that journey. And I believe that wholeheartedly because the discipline, the grit, the determination, the hard work, nobody sees the 450 miles you ran trying to train for 26 miles. They only
Mm.
see the 26.
Yeah.
And it just became this mission that I was so focused on that even in the pain and the suffering that it took to get there and the sacrifice of not eating that piece of cake when I wanted to and those kinds of things that it felt right. It felt right and it felt necessary. And um,
Mm.
it when I crossed that finish line, I definitely had a little bit of an emotional outburst where I maybe had a tear or two come out.
Yeah.
And, it didn't help that my donor ran out onto the street about 20 meters away from the finish line and gave me a high five.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And so that was a pretty magical moment. And so
Mm,
it took me a moment to kind of soak it all in.
yeah.
And I write in my book that the triumph wasn't for me. It was for all those that couldn't do it.
Oh,
And and that made it even more meaningful to me than what it meant for me to do it.
mm,
It truly was for them.
yeah. So just touching on what you said before, you talked about the physical healing and how hard it was and how it's part of the healing. But we've also talked about the mindset as the key is also part of the healing. How did you shift from why me to watch me?
Well, I will admit I've had therapy. And in the process of that therapy, because I did have that why me
Mm,
mentality for quite a while. And um, I think the answer to the why me is because it's whether it's God, whether it's the universe, whether whatever you believe in, um, reached me and said, "Why you?" Because you have the power to change other people's lives.
mm,
And then that became my purpose. And I think once I had purpose, nothing could get in my way.
mm,
And those days where I didn't want to run and I was starting to make excuses, that popped into my head and said, you have a bigger purpose than your physical body. Go out and run and make this happen. And it's funny because those days that I didn't want to run were my best running days.
yeah.
So it just, the purpose just drove me,
Mm,
and it still drives me
mm.
because I
And
continue to do hard things.
yeah, yeah, and that
So
was a powerful purpose to keep you going. Yeah, so wow, I think our listeners will take that one on. So you've also, out of this, through your purpose, you've created the Maselli mindset. What is it, and how can someone start applying it to their own life?
I would like to take credit that it's some sort of unique formula that I've created. And really it's just a, a combination of a lot of ideas that pulled together become a mindset. And I struggled with the name because
Mm,
it's more about building a mindset that's robust and powerful.
mhm.
And, you know, of, of course you have to pick a URL for your website. And so I thought, you know what, let's go with Maselli mindset. It's got a nice ring to it.
Yeah.
But the idea behind it is, we have the power to rewrite our story.
Mm,
And so often we forget that. I think that we tend to fall into the trap of this is who I am. There's no way out of this. So I'm just going to accept this and continue to move forward.
mm,
And I truly believe that to accomplish something, it's not just having the idea, it's taking that first step.
mm,
And in taking that first step, you're committing to yourself. It's not about the goal really, it's about the commitment to yourself. And once you take the second step and the third step and the fourth step, you start to gain momentum.
mm,
And once you get momentum, you start to gain confidence. And once you start to gain confidence, you start to feel powerful.
mm,
And then you start to have these victories, and those victories start to fuel you. And so the Maselli mindset is really just about taking that first step. It's about building that resilience And it's about accepting failure as a positive thing and using the failure to learn and to grow and maybe even use it for motivation. Like there were days where I had to run 5 miles and I was too tired and I ran 4. Well, someone would say, well, that's complete failure.
No.
Or no, you ran 4 miles. Let's celebrate that and try again tomorrow and use that lack of being able to complete the 5 miles. I'm not going to call it failure, lack of ability to complete the 5 miles as motivation to try again
Mm.
and try again and try again. And there's also things to learn in there. Did I not eat right? Did I not uh, get enough rest? Did I run in the morning instead of night? There's probably a variable or two in there that caused you to not be able to meet that goal. And of course, I used the marathon and the running as a metaphor for life because in life we will face obstacles. And so if you can build that resilience and that momentum, you become such a powerful force that obstacles are just speed bumps
Mm.
and and you can go right through them. And maybe it's a little challenging, maybe it's really challenging. But when you build that endurance and that mindset, you can overcome them a lot easier than that victim mentality that, oh, well, here we go again. You kind of lose that.
Mm. That's really inspiring, Mark. So, just on that, you talked about rewriting your story or your script or even breaking cycles. What would you say to someone who feels stuck in their past or in patterns that they've inherited?
I think what they need to do is sit down and they need to write down what their goals are. What they in an ideal situation, what would you like to do?
Mm.
And then write down a list of what things are preventing you from doing that. And I think once you write down that list, you're going to see that they're only excuses. They're not really impediments. And once you do that, you start to realize you're probably making excuses for why you can't or why you're stuck
Hmm.
or or not taking that first step. And I think when confronted with it and you see it on paper, you'll realize, oh, I do have the power to make the change.
Yeah.
And again, take that first step and you got the momentum. I kind of like to think that like to kind of take on the mindset or the thought exercise of if you had a friend that talked to you the way that you talk to yourself, would you stay friends with them?
Mm.
And when you put it in that way, you'd say, absolutely not. No
Mm.
way would I be friends with me if I talk to myself that way. And that's another stark realization that, oh, I'm so mean to myself. I
Hmm.
need to stop that.
Yeah. That resonates really deeply with me because I often say to everyone, you've got to treat yourself like you treat your best friend. So that absolutely resonates with me, that statement there, Mark. So how did you find purpose in the process, even when the outcome was uncertain?
Are you referring to when I was in the recovery?
Well, the whole purpose, your
Oh, the whole part.
processes, yeah,
Right.
of your mindset, the process.
Yeah. So I'll take a step back and
Hmm.
um, when I was busy working and focused on my career, I had convinced myself that my purpose was to provide for my family and to provide for my kids. And when I reflected on that during my recovery, I realized that that too became an excuse.
Hmm.
That became an excuse for losing myself. And when I realized that I had lost myself in that journey, I was a little mad at myself. And I thought, man, what have I done? I've lost my heart. And when I was younger, I painted and I played guitar and I did all these things that were very, spiritual to me, and I enjoyed them and they really kind of resonated with my heart, and I had lost all that.
Mm.
And again, while I was recovering, I did a lot of reflecting because I watched Netflix for like 2 weeks and I basically finished all of the shows. And I'm like, I can't sit here for 2.5 more months and watch more TV. And so I
Mm.
did do a lot of thinking, and in that process, I did a lot of soul searching and saying, okay, I have a second chance at life. I have a gift. What am I going to do with it? Am I going to go back to living the same way I was before, or am I going to do something different? And if I'm going to do something different, is it going to be purpose driven, or is it just going to be the pursuit of something else that's not going to bring me joy and happiness?
Mm.
And I ended up settling on I have to have purpose.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, well, what's my purpose? And one thing I really enjoy at work is mentoring others and helping them. And I've helped so many people get promotions and see them go on and do great things. And a couple of them have gone on to smaller companies and become vice presidents and directors and things like that. And I thought, I love inspiring others. So why not try something that is inspiring? And I have
Mm.
a story. I have a story of a transplant. Let's tie that to the marathon and see what happens. Maybe, and it really started off very niche for
Mm.
kidney transplant people only. And when I sat down to write the book and I started to tell that story, I realized it was universal.
Mm.
And that's when my purpose became even more specific, that this is not about the kidney people or the transplant people. This is about the universal desire that everybody has to be bigger, better, stronger than where they currently are. And if I can help inspire even a handful of people to change, then that would be so fulfilling and so rewarding, not only to me, but to them. And that tickled my heart so much that I was like, I found my purpose. I finally found my purpose in life, my true purpose in life. And that's been driving me for the last uh, year and a half now.
Mm.
19 20 months, 22 months. So
Yeah, that's fantastic, and that's a lovely way to put it, purpose versus pursuit. And a lot of people do get lost out there, and I've got lost out there myself where I thought my purpose was my career and I lost myself, but you just weren't happy in some places in your career. And then when you really truly find that purpose, it changes your whole life. It changes your whole relationship and your whole aspect on the world as a human being and seeing others and helping others. So on your journey, you would have had a lot of relationships that have been impacted. So, how has your relationship with your family, your body, and even your professional path changed?
I believe I have two sons, and I
Mm-hmm.
believe they look at me completely different now than they
Mm.
did before. They see a different dad. They see a dad that is inspired and working towards goals. And it's also setting a really good example for them.
Mm.
That was a really interesting byproduct of this effort, because it wasn't an intentional thing for me to show them what discipline and things like that will do. And they're in their late teens, so they're becoming young men, and it was perfect timing for them. And people at work have noticed a change in me, and they've
Mm.
become inspired, and a couple of people at work have started exercising now, and they've started a change. Um, right before this podcast, I had been thinking because when I found out that I had three potential donors,
Mm.
two of them had reached out to me on Facebook. I had no idea who they were. My wife had no idea who they were. We had no idea how they had gotten it. And it was because someone forwarded a message or reposted, and someone
Mm.
reposted, and someone reposted, and it is like 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so I was actually thinking about them the other day, and I was like, well, I wonder what happened to them. And I got on Facebook right before this as I was waiting, and I saw that both of them happened to be online. And
Ah.
again, I don't believe in coincidences. I believe there was a purpose behind it. And so I reached
Mm.
out to both of them and I said, "Oh, I've been thinking about you. I hope that, you guys are doing well. I just wanted to let you know I actually ended up getting a transplant," and kind of gave them a very brief summary of what happened. And one of them immediately responded to me and she said, "Oh my gosh, I'm so happy you reached out. I'm so happy for you. This is amazing. I was told I couldn't give you a kidney because I was too overweight.
Oh,
And you inspired me to lose weight, and I've since lost 80 pounds."
wow.
And I'm probably going to tear up now because
Mm.
it was it was such an amazing experience to hear that. And your podcast is about bringing a community and creating a global community. Here's
Mm.
a woman I've never met,
Yeah.
willing to donate to me, and I ended up saving her.
Mm.
Is just goosebumps all
Yeah,
over.
I just got goosebumps then when you said that. Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing how you can inspire so many people that you've never met, and that ripple effect that goes on and on and on, because now someone will be inspired by her and it keeps going on and on. So you've given a tremendous gift to the world, Mark. Yeah, absolutely beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't know what inspired me to send a message to them, and for that to be such an immediate response, and for her to
Mm.
tell me that, I'm like, this is my purpose. This is
Yeah.
my purpose, living reality right now. And
Yeah.
so there's my one. There's one.
Yeah. And it's also her act of kindness. You provided kindness back to her for her to be inspired. So this is where that ripple effect and the butterfly effect, you do something here and it will just go on and on and on. So it's really beautiful to hear that that's happening. And again, I'm always about the universe. Things happen when it's meant to happen. You're meant to share that story here today. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So, Mark,
Yeah.
what's next for you in your mission or your message or your mindset movement?
So my book will be released in probably about 6 to 8 weeks from now.
Mm-hmm.
And that is really more about my story and my journey
Yeah.
from transplant to marathon. And I'm actually writing a second book. I've already started a second book
Oh.
because why not? But that one gets more in depth and is more of a self-help book than just my
Mm-hmm.
journey story. I'm trying to build a following and really start to get the message out as much as I can. I'm actually trying to uh, get into public speaking and inspirational, motivational speaking, and transition out of the corporate world if
Mm.
possible. And um, using using my story of transplant to marathon as kind of the backdrop
Mm.
to help people understand that it is possible to change. And it starts with our perception of life and the choices we make, because everything we do is a choice.
Mm.
Inaction is a choice. Action is a choice.
Mm.
And I see all these memes on Facebook and Instagram and those about how choose your hard, you know. being overweight is hard. Eating
Mm,
clean is hard. Choose your hard, you know? And and I think that, being able to get those kinds of messages out, even if they seem cliche, they're cliche for a reason. And that really just feels like that's my purpose in life, is to share as much as possible, to inspire as much as possible,
mm,
and you know, like you, build a world community where we're not focused on the negative things and how terrible this is or how terrible that is, and let's remove politics and all that and really get
mhm,
to the core of, we're not here to fight. We're here to love, and we're here
mhm,
to bring joy and happiness to others. And in bringing joy and happiness to others, you receive just as much as you put out. So if you
mm,
put out negative energy, you're going to receive negative energy. And if you put out positive energy, you're going to receive positive energy. So why
mm.
not give as much positive energy as you can?
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. And I'm all about kindness. And if we're kind to one another, we know it's a win-win because the person we're kind to is uplifted and we're uplifted ourselves. So yeah, there's a method in that strategy that and we need to share it more and get that movement going around the world. So
Right.
Mark, can you share a mantra that keeps you going on tough days?
Hmm.
Just
That's
one
a
of your go-to ones. That,
yeah, that's a challenging one. I mean, I think the one that comes to mind is, you can do this.
yep,
It's so simple, but yeah, you can do this.
yep, absolutely, absolutely.
I
And
mean, I've survived every hard thing that's come my way. So what's different about today? So
exactly,
I can do it.
yep, I love it. Yep. And during your marathon, can you share a moment during that moved you deeply? You talked about the one at the end, but was there a moment when you were going through the hard yards of your marathon that moved you deeply?
Yes. So we talked briefly about kindness, and
Mm.
um, I had gotten to mile 22,
Ah,
and that negative little voice over here just said, "You're done.
mm,
Sit down, quit, give up. I don't know why you tried this. This is the dumbest thing you've ever done. Your feet hurt, your legs hurt, your hips hurt, you're tired, you're cold," because it was one of those weird days in Las Vegas where it was actually cold and
yeah.
rainy. And so I actually sat down on the curb and on the side of the street, and I gave up. And
Oh.
I said, as much as I want to finish this race, I give up. And I had forgotten my purpose in that
Mm.
moment. And as I was sitting there, this lady comes running by and she says, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I'm just tired and my legs hurt." She says, "We're all tired and everyone's legs hurt. You can do this." And I'm like, wow, she's really right. And
Mm.
not 10 seconds later, another lady came by and she said, "You can't quit now. You're almost at the finish line." I'm like, she's right. And then
Mm.
a third lady, 5, 10 seconds later, goes, "Come on, get up. You can run with me." And so I'm like, all right, that's three in a row. I can't sit here anymore. And I was so excited and so motivated that I got up and I started to walk. And I'm like, I'm just going to walk the rest of this. If that's what I have to do to get to the end, then that's what I have to do to get to the end. And then all of a sudden, I found myself running
Mm.
and going a little bit faster and a little bit faster. And those last 4 miles, I ran faster than I had run the previous 6 miles.
Wow.
And it just was a moment of inspiration because of these
Mm.
three ladies just being kind
Yeah.
and saying, "You've got this." And it was, when I played hockey, it was like beat up your enemy, right? Anyone that didn't wear the same color jersey as you was the enemy. And here we are, we're out on this course, nobody knows each other, and these three ladies felt it in their heart to try to inspire me to finish.
Mm,
And when I got up and I started to run, I remembered my purpose. And I go, between those three ladies and between my purpose, I'm finishing this thing. And something took over my body and I just started going.
mm.
And I
That's
think
a
that helped. I think that helped make it more triumphant too.
Yeah, that's a lovely story to share because it's really about them being kind and sending positivity to you that really uplifted your whole energy. And then, as you said, you ran faster the last couple of miles than you did all race. Like it just shows the energy and the positivity and the kindness in the world, how it can change you physically and
Right,
mentally. Yeah, yeah.
right. Yeah.
So, just on positive vibes, in one sentence, what does positive minds mean to you?
Um, one sentence. Hang on one second.
You're right.
Sorry, my son is walking around talking on the phone. Um, I'm sorry. Can you repeat the question?
So, that's okay.
That got me sidetracked for a
That's
second.
okay. So, in one sentence, what does positive minds mean, vibes mean to you?
So it's such positive vibes to me is not only just thinking positivity, but emitting positivity.
Mm-hmm.
And when our minds truly believe positivity, our body radiates that
Mm-hmm.
positivity, and people can feel it and sense it.
Mm-hmm.
That might be long. That might be like a sentence with a bunch of commas in
No,
it.
that's okay. That's okay. Yeah, that's a beautiful way of putting it. I'm all about, yeah, let us shine so others can shine too. Yeah, so that's lovely. Thank you, Mark. So, Mark, where can our listeners connect with you, your story, your book, and your mindset coaching?
Right. So my Instagram handle is at Mark Maselli.
Mm-hmm.
That's MarkMaselli. And then my website is Maselli Mindset, all one word, no hyphens, .com.
Mm-hmm.
And there I have a blog that I post every Sunday that is either a positive message or some sort of motivation. I talk about various things that are in the book and not in the book that relate to um, how do we start to develop our mindset in ways that make it resilient.
Mm-hmm.
And then my book, I will be advertising my book on both the Instagram and the website once it's ready. It's actually very close. We're working through formatting right now, and so that should be coming out in, like I said, maybe 6 to 8 weeks. And so I'll be advertising that quite a bit on both of those platforms. Uh, so
Wonderful. We look forward to your book coming out. I'm sure our listeners will want to grab that and have a good read of that. And
yeah,
finally, Mark, what message would you say to someone who's in the middle of their healing but doesn't yet see the finish line?
don't give up.
Mm,
Don't ever give up, and be patient. Don't give up. Be patient. And the third thing, be kind to yourself.
thank you, Mark. Well, thank you for sharing your story here today, Mark. It's not just a victory, it's the valley. You've reminded us that strength doesn't come from being fearless, but from facing the fear and moving anyway. So, thank you, Mark, for sharing your story here today.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. To our listeners, if you have been stuck, scared, or unsure of what's next, let this be your reminder. You don't have to wait for life to give you permission. You can choose to change. You can rewrite the story. This is Positive Vibes. Let's keep building a world where grit, grace, and purpose walk side by side. Sending you all love and positive vibes. Bye for now.